Well, I got this 2008 ZHZ C6, and we have to do fuel pumps. So, getting the fuel out of it and start taking it apart. Got to drop the cradle, all that neat stuff. Get the saddle tanks removed. Got the exhaust out. I take off these 36 bolts. Get this cover off here. Plate is off, exposing the torque tube. You can see way up there the good old crossover tube for the saddle tanks, which is a lot of fun. There's the covers for the saddle tanks. So you just pull the spring back down like that and pull up on the cable like that and pull it out of the hole. And get your emergency cable right off. Remove the caliper and the bracket all in one piece, and then I hang it off piece tie wire right here out of the way. Got the axle nut off, and I'm going to pull the shock. Normally I would just undo the bottom of the shock and let them hang, but these are these magnetic shocks. They're electrical and they're pretty high dollar, so I'm just going to pull it right out and get it out of my way. Just got to put the jack under it a little bit, relieve some tension on there so you can pull this bolt out. My handy dandy little ball joint splitter tool. Works great. A lot better than a pickle fork. I only use a pickle fork unless I really have to, and then I have a special washer to guard so you don't tear the boot, because that's about all a pickle fork is good for. Tearing up the ball joint boot. So yeah, and you can get this axle out. You can just barely get it out of there. Pop it out over there. Now you got room to take the shock out. And then from there, do the other side. Undo the brake line bracket back there. Undo all the wire clips on the cradle. And we'll get the cradle dropped. Here's these crazy shocks. That's why I just pull them out. Get them out of my way. I always mark everything what side it came from. Left side. Had to hit this one with the dead pillow rubber hammer. No grease on the splines. I'll have to clean that all up. I put a tiny bit of grease on the splines, and before I put that back together. Got a jack stand and a board under the transmission. This is an automatic, and I've got my little cradle jig. I always make sure I undo the air cleaner. So when you tilt the engine back, it just pulls off of there. Everything else is usually not a problem. I get slack for my Ryobi tools, but somebody had gave me a couple of them, and so I just kind of went with it. And I got this baby here, and boy, it's one of the best tools I ever got. Love this thing. So as you lower the cradle a bunch, you can get at all these looming connectors. Good old Cradle Jig 2000 does it again. Love this thing. Get the driver line lowered down. I'll get it to the desired height, put that jack stand under it with the board. I should be able to get it to crossover tube. I'm gonna give it a shot. But it gives you room now to get the exhaust out of the way. Pull the fender well out. Unhook the filler tube and the vent tube. Undo the fuel tank support. Let the fuel tank hang down a little bit. It's empty, so there's not a lot of weight in it. And I'd be able to get my hand up in there and have a little more room now to undo that crossover tube. Here's a diagram on the side of the tube. Let you know how much of an angle you can get out of it by lowering it down. Yep, there's our nightmare crossover tube. There's fuel lines got to get disconnected. I already relieved the pressure in the system, so don't have to worry about that, but you definitely want to have some sort of face protection and whatnot, because it's in a beautiful spot up there to get at, and Gonna get some fuel on you one way or the other. That crossover tube's a nightmare. C5s are so much easier. They had the cover right here, pull the fuel pumps right out. Simple. Turn this job into like, who knows how many hours it's gonna be. I can wrestle that damn crossover tube out of there. Now I can basically crawl up in there and work that crossover tube nightmare from hell. The left side is out. There are those hoses. You kind of got to work them off. The crossover tube really is fun. Now I can take the crossover tube off the right side and then stick a hose in there and drain that tank over there. So I'd take a little screwdriver and a hammer, typical ring, hold the fuel pump in, tap a couple different ones evenly, pops right out. It's not too bad. Lift the fuel pump up. Got one fuel line right there, got to disconnect, and then this strap over here, disconnect, and let the hoses drop down in the tank. So I got the one line off, and then you can see the other line right there. I already pulled it out of its little valley. It sticks down in that hole down there and goes on that strap right there. Use a pair of long nose, needle nose, and kind of pull up on it and get it out of the way. And I'll drop it off to the side, and you should be able to pull this sending pump unit out. And just be careful of the sending unit. Just like any other fuel pump, pull out of a tank. It's got the float on it. Just be careful you don't damage it. I'm getting a whole new assembly anyway, but. So there you go, fuel assembly is out. A lot of people on the internet, you see, they try to just get up in there and work that crossover tube without lowering the cradle and doing all this neat stuff. But putting that crossover tube back together and making sure all the lines are on properly and everything is in there good. I'd rather have the room to work, so I just do the little extra work to pull the cradle and do all that. It's really not that big a deal. This is an automatic transmission, so it takes up a lot more room than the manual. So that was the other reason I went this route. You could try and do whatever you want to do, but this is the way I did it. So upon examining my return lines that go in the left side tank, I got a little pinhole here on the bottom one. So I gotta get a new set of these anyway. I don't think that belongs there. I don't know if anybody knows anything about that, but the clips are broken like they always do on these damn things, because it was fun to pull apart. You're gonna want to inspect the inside of your crossover tube and make sure those clips didn't break on those either, which of mine are okay. Gonna want to lube all this up before we put it back together. Make it easier. Some guys spray WD-40 on there. Got the line set in there. Got a little string tied on the lines down there. See if we can get this bad boy in. I believe you got to put the float in this way to make sure you get past those lines. Kind of pull up on those lines at the same time to this side of the tank. Let the float go to that side of the tank so the float ends up underneath the lines. You don't want to get all that hung up on there. Yeah, looks like fun. Yeah, 2 people definitely is a 2 people mission. It makes it a lot easier.